Welcome to the Soul Star Podcast with your spiritual besties, Allie and Mandy. We're here to make your spiritual journey fun, relatable, and inspiring. So let's raise your vibe and ignite your soul together.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another week of the Soul Star Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us yet again. We have another wonderful guest joining us, and you may remember her from a previous episode. We'd love to reintroduce you to Kyla. She is a trauma release breathwork practitioner and empowerment leader for women. She is on Instagram, Breathwork with Kyla, and she has a beautiful podcast called Reclaimed. So we're here to introduce you again to Kyla. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me again. It was
Yeah.
I feel like it would have been a fun little tidbit to record us as we jumped on the giddiness of like,
Catching up, right? We're all like,
yeah,
oh my God, it's been so long. It's like the Instagram, like a lot of people, like I'll come on to do like a reading for a client and I'll be like, oh my God, it's been so long since I've seen them. And they're like, oh, actually, I see you every week on Instagram. And I'm like, oh, okay. So not for you, but for me. I know it's such a weird thing with social
yeah.
media.
It really makes you think that you spend a lot more time with people than you actually do, or you know them a lot better than you actually do.
Yeah. It's super
Agreed.
interesting.
Yeah.
I know.
We were just talking about that, how like we haven't really spoken for a couple years, and it's hard to even like think that it's been that long since we haven't really
Mhm.
connected or reconnected, because we do watch each other's journeys over Instagram, and we've actually seen you do quite a rebrand since the last time we spoke. So what do you want to
Mhm.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I burned it. I burned it down.
I burned
Love
it
it.
down.
I burned it all down.
Oh my
God.
God. I love that.
You know, I think that I would say I don't care what people think of me. I don't care what people think of me. And there's a part of me that totally cares what people think. And
Yeah.
I'll start with my Instagram account because that was sort of, well, that's where the branding would have been most visible. But then I actually closed my Instagram account down and it had 13,500 people on it. And that was an account that I grew from like another lifetime when I was in fitness. I grew this account
Yeah.
and then I transitioned kind of at the like a flip of a switch. It was like I found breath work and everything else was dead to me. I was like, this is it. And so the people who were following me for health and fitness now got this new, like, who's this woman? And so for a couple of years, I felt like I couldn't fully show up as who I knew myself to be. I almost felt like I was trying to play like two roles, like still trying to appease the people who cared about the health and fitness aspect of me. I don't know. It's also silly when I say it out loud. But there was something inside of me that felt like I wasn't actually able to be my authentic self on my own Instagram account.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it started with that. I thought about it for a really long time. Just start a new account, delete the old one, start a new account, delete the
Mm.
old one. And then the part of me that was thinking, well, what if I am pitching to a podcast, or what if I am trying to get on a show and they ask me, "Oh, what is your following?" And I say, like right now it's at, I don't know, somewhere in the 700s, but it used to be 13,500, which
Mhm.
you I at least think people care about that more. So there was a lot of resistance, but I just did it anyway and that felt really good.
Good for
It
you.
felt so good. And then the rebrand, I changed the name of the membership. I my best friend has always said to me, she's like, "Kyla, I know you better than anyone, and you have this serious bitchy side to you that you don't utilize." She's like, "I've seen it, but I think you need to utilize it more. Like it's your essence. It's like you have this edge and you're a bit of a bitch. And I think like you should bring that forward." And I was like, I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or or not. I'm gonna think about it. But yeah, I have a bit of sass. I'm sarcastic. I'm uh, inappropriate sometimes. And so I am bringing that forward a little bit more. I am being a little bit maybe edgier or sassier. And it feels really true to me. It feels really right. So that all was sort of this like all long rebrand. Who am I? Who do I want to actually be seen as? Because let's
Yeah.
be honest, like we can chameleon ourselves and we can be anybody to anything. We can play all the roles, but if it's not
Mm.
my true authentic self, A, it's going to be exhausting. And anyone who's even remotely tuned into themselves will know that it's fake.
Yeah.
They can see it.
I
Yeah.
love that you are sharing that because I've noticed
Mhm.
even just recently how much louder that has been for me where I'm scrolling on Instagram in my free time and I've come across accounts and they're sharing their message or their whatever it is that they're selling or their whatever it is that it is. And I can tell like, I can tell energetically who's showing up authentically and who's not, because I can't even stand watching the ones that
Mhm.
are inauthentic, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, scroll, 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 and then I hear a message and somebody's really passionate about what they're talking about, or you can tell that they're really tuned into their authenticity, and I will watch those ones, but
Yeah.
I'm starting to get this ick about well, I've had an ick about Instagram for a long time, but I'm starting to notice it differently now, the accounts where I'm like, okay, this person just threw this on here because they needed to get into the algorithm. This
Mhm.
person took the time to create this content. And I'm more interested in learning from it because I can feel that authenticity
Yeah.
within that post. So very,
Yeah.
very, very interesting that you share that. And I'm so glad that you decided to that's hard. That's like an identity.
Hard.
Um,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was. And so then I cut my hair off. I called my Do you guys know Kevin Lewis? You have to.
I've
Mm-mm.
heard of him. Yeah. He's a hairdresser in the area.
He's a hairdresser, but he's also like the psychic medium gifted
Oh,
master who
yes.
yes.
Oh, what?
Oh yeah.
He's been at a couple fairs we've been at, I think.
He's
But
so
a
good. Do you guys
hairdresser?
Oh
Is he a
yeah.
hairdresser?
Yeah.
He was like well, I'm gonna use these words. I don't know if it's accurate. World renowned. Like he traveled the world
Mm.
doing hair and teaching lessons and like going to all the shows and has always from like the time he was a little boy been wickedly intuitive and psychic. And now he's also like a world renowned medium and psychic. Like he works all through the
Wow.
UK. He he's like 6 months wait list to get in for a session with him.
Wow.
Dear
What's his
friend of
name again?
mine, Kevin Lewis.
Lewis. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
And he's sort of fading out of doing hair, but I
Mm.
snagged him as my hairdresser a couple years ago. Anyway, so
I
like
love
ages
that.
ago, I was like, okay, I think I need my hair cut. So it was like a 4-month wait list. And that happened a couple weeks ago. So I'd like, look, cut it off. Cut it off. Who am I without this hair? Because I have this attachment also to
Mhm.
long hair, which I
Mhm.
blame on my grandfather. I remember being a little girl and a teenager, like my whole life that he was alive. It was girls have long hair. Pretty girls have long hair. Girls have long hair. Girls have long hair. I heard it all the time. And so
Yeah.
I've had this attachment to having long, beautiful hair. I've had long hair, but I don't do anything with it. I just like throw it up in a top knot or put it in a ponytail. And so there was this like, who would I be without this? Like, what is my attachment to this stuff on my head? And what part of me would come forward if I was to chop it all off? So I
Yeah.
chopped it all off. I'm still undecided on who I am and if I like it, but I'm getting there. A
I feel
huge
you.
adjustment. Yeah. Wow. It's a lot.
It is. It is. It'd be like, Allie, if you cut your hair off.
Yeah.
The long,
I've
beautiful
had
hair.
it. I've had it like here.
When? Not since I've
But
known.
Oh
when
yes.
she was 7,
No.
when it was
When I
still
was
growing.
Seven.
saying
I've had it. I'm here. No, I had it here when I was before my separation. Yes, I cut it to here. I can show you videos.
Well,
Pull
we need
back
to see
the,
videos.
yeah.
Yeah.
Scroll back in
Back on
Instagram.
Yeah, go
Instagram.
go and see that. I've got curly hair too, so there's
You have
only
very
so
pretty hair.
Oh, thank you. But I've like my curls, if I go short, it goes shorter.
Yeah.
Right? You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
That's true.
I
That's
know.
true.
I know. I'm like, no, I love the it takes a lot of courage to do all of that. Like the leaving behind a Instagram that you built such a following, and I totally get that when it was like a different type of following. So
Mhm.
how can you fully show up as yourself with that, but to let go of that attachment, that would be hard because anybody who has tried or is growing any type of social media knows how freaking slowly that can go. And there's a lot of work that gets put into that. So I think like so brave and courageous to let that go and start new. Anytime I see anybody that does this, I've seen a few people and I'm like, wow, that I can feel it in my gut when I'm like,
Mhm.
ooh, that's hard. And then like the rebrand, I will say I freaking love it because it is edgier. It
Thank
is
you.
for sure edgier, and I love it. Like I'm like,
Thank you.
that is a cool
Both
check
fans.
right
Fans
there.
of the rebrand.
Thank
I
you.
know. I know.
Thank
I'm
you.
like, she's so cool. I want to be.
It's because
Wearing
she's a
leather.
bit bitchy.
Yes. You're like, you got the dark side. And I'm like, I love it. Yeah.
Well, and I had a girlfriend slash like breathwork client of mine message me sometime after I sort of did the rebrand. And she's like, I forget how she worded it, but she said, when you first started, it was all about healing. And now it feels like it's more about like feminine empowerment and business. And I was like, how are those different?
Mm-hmm.
Are those different? It's the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same. The only reason we can be in our power and we can, you know, grow a business if that's what someone wants to do, or a family or a life that they love is because they've healed the parts of themselves that felt disempowered. So it's the
Mm-hmm.
same.
Healing is empowerment, right?
100%.
As you heal, that's how it is empowerment. It takes a lot of courage and empowerment
Yeah.
to even face those things that we need to heal. So I
Yeah.
think it's completely hand in hand.
Yeah.
And but even in that aspect too, even if it wasn't, so
Right.
you've evolved, you've
Well,
changed, and you're going with that flow of where you're being called to go. We're not meant to stay stagnant, right? And so you're honoring that where you're being led.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's naive for any of us to think that ourselves or our business would stay exactly as it has stayed, because as we evolve, our business will evolve with us, or it should anyhow. That's just part of the journey. It's part of, like you said, evolving and empowerment and all that beautiful, wonderful healing that we do.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And
I
as we
agree.
heal ourselves, right?
Mhm.
So I'm thinking like,
Mhm.
Mandy and I, as we've kind of, when we started this business to now, like we have changed fundamentally as people. We have
Mhm.
gone through experiences, we've healed, we've, evolved. And it's like, and then we start to, or even like in the business with clients and students, and we're seeing like something come forward. We're like, yes, that is important. So then that starts to shape, where we're kind of going, because it's all part of it. So yeah, that's super interesting. But you know what? Nobody's ever going to be happy. Everybody's going to have like
Yeah.
their own thing, right? Like you go and you change, and you're like, well, I liked your hair longer. It's just
Yeah.
cool. Thank you. I remember
Right.
no, when I chopped my hair off. Remember this, Mandy? So you do know. When I chopped my hair off, I went into the branch, and a girl there was like, "Oh, you cut your hair?" And I said, "Yeah."
Mhm.
She's like, "It will grow back."
No.
I don't remember that. Oh, and I was like,
It'll
"Oh, yeah."
Oh my God.
It will grow back. Mhm. Oh, poor thing. So funny. I know, and you're just like, "What just happened here?"
Oh,
Yeah. So people will have opinions on everything.
always.
Yeah, yeah. With your rebrand, Kyla, you've also kind of shifted to, like, you still have your membership program, because I know
Yeah.
in you support people with breath work and yoga,
Oh,
right?
many things. Yes,
Many
there's
things,
yoga in
yeah.
there.
Lots of things, right? We can talk. We'd love to for you to share a little bit about your membership so people know how you support them. But you've also kind of shifted a little bit about, like, your work has shifted too. It just hasn't been
Yeah.
a rebrand, but your work has shifted too. Do you want to share a little bit about where you were, what you were doing, and kind of how that's shifted and what you're doing now?
Yeah. I'm thinking back. I don't even remember when I was on here. It was like, it was probably like,
It was
2021.
over 2 years
it
ago,
was
that's for sure.
definitely over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would have been in the early phases of the membership, which would have been called the Essentials back then. And I
Yeah.
do really like that name. I do really like that name. And at that point, that was when I had found breathwork and I had burned my fitness business to the ground. There's a theme here.
We're noticing it.
Sure.
Noticing a
I expire. So I had burned the fitness business to the ground and I was like, okay, what do I think is the foundations? What are the essentials to a good life? And it was movement, like nourishment, breath, and community, I think at the time. So then I put together this membership that had all of those things. It had yoga, it had fitness, it had some inner coaching on like nourishment and nutrition a little bit, breath work, meditation, and a community aspect. And that has stayed. It's like my baby. I don't think I will ever, ever, ever not run this membership. And when I rebranded, I was like, if I was to just say I'm the founder or the creator of the essentials, people are like, what is that? What is the essentials of what? So I wanted it to make a little bit more sense to the average person. So then I rebranded it to Breathe with Kyla. Like that's pretty clear. We're breathing with
Mhm.
Kyla.
Yeah.
And
Not
the
Everybody now, let's do it. Breathe with
let's
Kyla.
do it.
Breathe with Kyla.
Oh God. So the contents of it have stayed the same. I now, in this current phase of burning things to the ground, I'm like, I love Breathe with Kyla. And I kind of don't love the word membership anymore. And I don't know that people want to join memberships. I don't know. That might be an inner story, but I just don't think they want to join memberships anymore.
Mm.
But what I want to do with it is like I want to deepen it. I want to enrich it. I want it to be a place where people come to really learn and to be mentored and coached. And so I'm over, I don't know when this episode's going to launch, but over the next few months, I'm doing a bunch of internal change with Breathe with Kyla, and I'm adding in a bunch more. Like, it's going to be a mentorship. It's going to be a place where you come and we learn nervous system regulation, emotional regulation, feminine embodiment, breathwork tools for like you name it. Um, there will still be a really strong community aspect. We'll get together for weekly calls and education and community connection and breathwork and all of those pieces. But it's really going to be a place where people are coming with the intention to, I don't just want to be guided through a practice. I want to understand, why am I doing this? How is this actually supporting my nervous system? What am I getting out of it? It's like a mini school.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, my vision is for it to be like a mini school. I'm going to be launching a breathwork certification training for people who want to
Mm.
facilitate breathwork
Wow.
next year. So like my little spidey feelers are in the space of like more education, and I really want people to understand what they're doing. There's so much breath work out there right now, and maybe it's just my algorithm, but it's like everybody is facilitating. And so if everyone's going to be doing it, then let me be the one who's giving education. Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is this actually supporting you, and how is this supporting your family and the people in your life?
Mhm.
Oh, that's where we're at. Like we
Mhm.
have these tools to read energy, to go to the Akashic records, to understand our soul imprints and our past lives so that we can heal them. But we don't want to just do that for you. We want to teach you how to do it for yourself
Mhm.
so that
Mhm.
you hold these tools so that you can do the work for yourself without having to pay for it all the time. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
empower people to have the tools to do the work for themselves, and then they
Yeah.
can teach others how to do it for themselves and incorporate it into their families, into their
Yeah.
work, into everything into who they are. They can start to embody that healed version of themselves.
Yeah.
Mm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's so much more power in that, right? Rather than just like outsourcing, oh, tell me the thing, tell me the thing. And of course,
Mhm.
we play that role as well. We can be
Mhm.
the servant, so to speak.
Mhm.
But the real power comes from when we don't feel like we need to ask and reach, and it's just here.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I have
know.
a thought, a business question for you guys.
Yeah.
I wonder if you were to offer a training program for coaches or counselors specifically, because those are the
Mhm.
people that are working like intimately with
Yes. Mhm.
clients,
Yeah.
and they're going to be
Yeah.
coming up against the same types of hurdles. What if they had the tools to be able to guide these
We
clients into
we
the journey? Maybe you've already
absolutely.
done that.
No. Oh, no, 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 no. We haven't specifically narrowed it down to that. We have recognized, and we've talked about that on the podcast and stuff, where having these tools and bringing it into different lines of work, because
Mhm.
every line of work it would benefit. But we've talked about, like, with counseling or coaching or teaching or whatever it is,
Mhm.
um, how beneficial it is to be able to have these tools. So let's just say a counselor. um, like, yes, you have the ability to communicate and talk, and maybe these tools on how to get somebody to open up and how you can support them.
Mhm.
But there's a big part of the subconscious that as humans, we're not accessing. And especially if it's something that we are wanting to heal, that maybe we just don't have access to it. And so if a
Mm.
counselor could go in and read your energy and talk to your spirit team to see like what is needed to come forward at this time, like how much deeper would those sessions be?
So good.
Right?
Or
They'd be
Mhm.
even
so much deeper.
to understand that, like, okay, we're working through this one specific pattern or limiting belief that this person has. Let's just say it's I'm not lovable, right?
Mhm.
So they've been going through these sessions, multiple sessions, they're working through it, but how impactful would that be for the counselor to go in and understand what chakra that limiting
Mhm.
belief rooted in, and then be able to specify where, like, what, like, you're narrowing it down to the work that you need to do. No, energetically, let's do some inner child work in this is, caused from the foundation. And then they have these questions that they can ask, like, did you feel safe, or did you know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
just, it can just be so powerful,
Yeah.
in so many lines of
Mhm.
work, in all lines of work.
I
Mhm.
feel like we actually talked about this years ago on the podcast where we were talking about, or maybe we were talking about it in, because I did one of your programs, where like if doctors and the medical field had this information, like
Mhm.
every single industry, every single job, every single person would just be so benefited. It'd
I
be so
know.
benefit.
Well, because the thing
Come on,
is,
people.
it's there. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, energy is
I
affecting
know.
us in every day, every moment, it's affecting us. And so I think that's the biggest thing is like, okay, yeah, we can't see it. We don't understand it, but it's like you can ignore it, but it's still happening. And so
You
like
can feel it.
feel it. We know that when we trap energy in the body, that through breath work, we know that, say an emotion gets pushed down and it starts to manifest into something physical. So
Yeah.
if you have a doctor that understands that, okay, we've got something physical. Okay, this is the product, but let's get to why the heck it started.
Yeah.
And understanding that part, like this is a holistic, approach to it instead of a band-aid.
Yeah.
We had a medical intuitive on a few weeks ago, um, who she's a nurse, and she ended up, training to be a medical intuitive, and there was studies, she was saying that there was studies that done where, they same patients, the medical intuitives did their assessment, the doctor did their assessment. The medical intuitive was 95% accurate, the doctor was 67%
Wow.
accurate, and this was over a bunch of different tests. And so it really makes you go like, and in the States where she lives, they're starting to like hire, or doctors are consulting with medical
Oh.
intuitives, which I'm like, it's happening.
Oh my gosh.
Right? I know,
Oh.
like this is what we need to start to see. And I think when we talk about like new earth or moving into a new way of being, um, we are seeing this. We're seeing that
Yeah.
more and more people are kind of connecting the dots. More and more people are waking up and going like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. This is not working. And, you know, and I think like I know for myself, and I know for Mandy, like we see all of this destruction, all of this chaos happening in the world right now. And as uncomfortable as it is, like I know in the back of my mind, I'm like, good, because we need to see this. This needs to happen because we need it to crumble so that we can rebuild it better. Because the old way of doing things has not been working.
Yeah.
But before you can rebuild a new one, unfortunately, we have to go through this hard time of the
Yeah.
crumble, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing right now. Yeah.
100%.
Mhm.
100%. You can't build, if you buy an old house, you want to build a new house on the land, you have to demolish the old house. You have to tear it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have to
Get rid of it.
start right at the base.
Yeah. And it's messy.
It's super messy. And
Yeah.
then this, I say this and I'm sure it's easy, and I'll just say it. People can judge whatever. But it's like and we've all said it. It's all happening perfectly the way it's supposed to. Like
Yes.
whether we want to agree to that or not, we just happen to be the ones on earth enduring it, but like it's happening at the exact right time, exactly the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's
It's
hard.
wild.
It's hard for
It is
some
hard.
people to grasp. And, it can come across as, I don't know, because I sometimes feel like in conversations when I don't get riled up with all the things happening in the
Mhm.
world, because I'm seeing it from a different perspective.
Mhm.
Um, but then you get looked at like, what's wrong with you? Like, are you a psychopath? Do you not
Yeah.
see what's going on? Do you not care? And it's
Mhm.
like, oh my God, like I literally know it's going to unfold the way it unfolds. So what?
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm just going along with the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that a lot of us who do this work, so yourself, Kyla, us, a lot of other practitioners who are doing like somatic healing or Reiki or anything really, I feel like we're all here helping those who are just awakening and just starting to understand this bigger this
Mhm.
collective consciousness. And I think that we are all at the base, like we're all supporting that foundation, that base, and
Mhm.
helping people because a lot of people are crumbling through this
Mhm.
time, right? And they don't really know where to go. And I was talking to somebody the other day and she's like, I just don't even want to be here anymore. Like
Yeah.
this is, and it
Mhm.
wasn't even anything specific. It was just an overwhelm of life. Like
Yeah.
it's just and a lot of people are feeling that way. And this is partly why we're here.
Mhm.
All of these practitioners and sharing our voices and our stories is so that we can support that transition from being overwhelmed and feeling like you don't want to do this anymore to starting the healing journey, so that you can live life more empowered and reclaim your authenticity and live in that higher vibration where you experience more happiness and joy than you do frustration and agony, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I it's on my other desk, but I in my meditation practice every morning. So on Mondays I pull a new card, and then every day in my meditation I just reread the card, which is such a cool practice I'm finding rather than pulling a different card. If I
Yeah.
read the same card 7 days in a row, I get different bits of it.
Love that.
Anyways, it's been a really
Mm.
sweet practice. But the card that I pulled, there's a piece in it where it speaks about my role in what's happening right now being the anchor, kind of like what you just spoke about, like holding strong and anchoring so that those who feel like they are unstable have somewhere to come, and not in a sense where I need to take that on for them, but I like maybe be the proof or the pillar that they can come to,
Mhm.
and how important like my own obviously practice is in that, to stay really grounded and rooted in that. And that feels really true for me. I don't know how this happens, but I have this kind of interesting ability to not take other people's energy on, which is
Good for
fantastic
you.
That's
for
very
the work
good.
that I do,
Yep.
because it could be a lot. And because of that, I can hold some crazy shit. Like I can hold someone in real shit.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I can be that pillar and I can be that anchor. And so reading that card was such a good reminder that even in all of this wildness that is, to not lose, like, don't lose yourself in it. Like
Mhm.
we're here, like you said, like we have chosen this. We are here for this reason, to anchor in, to shine a light, to act from a place of what we desire to see, be the
Yeah.
be the change we want to see.
Mhm.
And to just, like really anchor, like really hold true to that. Like just pitchfork in, we're here. We're here for
Yeah.
the long haul.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the role that we're playing, for this transition of consciousness that we are
Hmm.
seeing as everything's crumbling around us and people are fighting and they're angry and they're spewing hatred and frustration everywhere. And, there's people, we're meant to just be that light, to be that guiding force, that anchor, that the ability to hold the space without taking on their frustration as well. And it's an important role that we're all playing, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah. Well, and like breath work, that's been obviously a big part of your journey. That was the pillar that made you go, let's leave fitness, and
Yeah.
that you were very successful in, and
Yeah.
then move over to this concept of breathwork. I'm curious, when did you first experience your first like experience with breathwork? Like how did you even get onto that path? Like what kind of
Well,
brought you
I
there?
resisted it.
Oh, me too.
I
Me too.
resisted it. And what you resist persists. And what you resist is usually your most important medicine.
Yeah.
I'd spent so many years in fitness. The more I talk about this, the more I like actually tease apart my story, the more I see it so differently. So the way I used to tell my story is that the fitness industry felt really superficial, which it did, and it
Mhm.
is. But um, what happened for me when I first the way I got into the fitness industry, my mom died like 2 weeks after my 20th birthday. And I took a break out from life. And then when I went back to life, I moved to a new town and I had a woman who owned a gym in this town. And she was very, uh, she took me under her wing and she was an old bodybuilder and she took me under her wing and said, I'm gonna train you for the show and
Mm.
whatever. So she sort of became my like mother figure.
Yeah.
And what that did, two things. It like kept me busy and occupied, but it gave me something that helped me suppress my feelings. I got so busy in this thing and it kept me busy.
Mm.
And so I could suppress the grief and all of the pain that I was feeling. And
Yeah.
so, as much as I blame the superficiality and the surface levelness of my life on fitness, yes, and it was a choice that I was consistently subconsciously making to keep myself surface.
Mm.
And so I wasn't actually going deep into relationships, friendships, like anything. I just didn't really have much depth because I knew that if I went there, I subconsciously knew. Consciously,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
That if I went deep, I would hit the grief and then it would be game over.
Yeah.
And
And it's scary, right? Like, and
so
like,
scary.
yeah. And I think a lot of people, there's this fear there, even if like you're like, oh yeah, no, I do have this thing,
Hmm.
like, so whether it's from childhood, whatever it is, I have this thing, and the thought of touching it or digging it up is like, but what if I don't survive through it? Like that's, I
Yeah.
think this the biggest hurdle
Yeah.
is everybody thinks like, if I do that, I don't know if I'm going to make it through. And it's
Yeah.
like, how do you get past, right? You would have had that too, where it was like, well, if I can't touch it because I'm going to crumble and everything's going to fall to
Mhm.
pieces. So like,
Mhm.
how does somebody touch that or take the chance,
Yeah.
Like that's a
Well,
scary,
they don't force it. That's one thing. And
yeah.
because if we think about whatever that thing is, it's trauma to us, and
Yeah.
trauma comes to us too soon, too much, too fast. Something happened that was too soon, too much, too fast, and
Mm.
that's what traumatizes the body. There's this thing that happened. We don't have time to adjust. We feel in danger. There's generally like an emotional response that doesn't actually get to happen because we're in survival
Yeah.
and so if we then try to heal that by going in at it 100 miles an hour,
Hmm.
re-traumatization,
Yeah.
or just a complete block. I always use this example. Like if we think about being a little girl riding your motorcycle, bicycle. I would never. I still would never.
That's your like your edge side coming out.
I was a little kid and I was like, Papa wheelies.
Yeah, Papa.
Oh God, no! I'll get on the back of a motorcycle any day when I'm not riding a motorcycle. Um, but if you can imagine like riding your bicycle and you fall and you scrape up your knee and you have your like big uncle Jerry and he's like, "Oh, get up! It's just a bit of blood. Come on, get up!" And he picks you up and puts you back on your bike and is like, kind of forceful. Imagine it
Yeah.
kind of forceful.
Yeah.
Imagine it like really burly.
Yeah.
Versus your sweet Nan, who's like, "Oh, my little darling, come on over here. Let me give you a little cookie. We're going to wipe that up. Let's take a little break. Look at the butterflies. Look at how pretty and sunny it is." And then in half an hour, she's like, "How do you feel about getting back on your bike? What are you like? What feels the most inviting?"
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's the same kind of thing. If we're going to Uncle Jerry ourselves into like, do the thing, heal the thing, go into it versus, hey, you get to take your time.
Yeah.
You get to take your time, and there's a part of you that will know when it's time, and it will take the steps for you. And
Mm.
for me, I think, yeah, I was invited into breathwork time and time again. I didn't know what it was, to be clear, but I kept getting invited to this session, and I kept saying no, and then eventually I just said yes. So like there was a part of me that was
Mm.
ready. I think anyways.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I actually think it was also helpful that I didn't know what it was, because had I known what it was and heard a bunch of stories, I know myself, I would have placed expectation of what this means. Like, this is what's going to happen.
Mhm.
Mm. Mhm.
And I didn't know, and I had no expectations. So I just sort of went to this thing.
Yeah.
And it was just such a profound experience for me. And I know that not everyone's first time is profound, but it really was for me, to the point where I left and, I felt the depth of myself that I hadn't. I met a part of myself that I don't think I'd ever met.
Wow.
And it was so strong and profound and important. And I felt it in every cell of my body, where I was like, this is it. This is the thing I've been waiting for. This is the depth. This is the more-ness that I've just been seeking.
Mm.
And so I literally hired her breathwork trainer like the next morning and
Wow.
started to close my business out
Wow. Like that.
instantly.
I love
Instantly.
your
Wow.
spontaneity. That's when you know. It's you just
I
do
knew.
it.
What's your
Mhm.
zodiac sign?
Cancer.
Oh, Cancer.
I know.
Interesting.
And
I would
Leo and the
Birthday,
I
Leo
was like, is it
rising. July.
Aries? I was
No, July 13th.
Leo.
July
Mm.
13th.
Yeah.
Oh, like
So
super
interesting.
Cancer.
So Cancer. I cry all
Yeah.
the time.
I'm so Cancer too. Mandy, do you
And I
cry all
wanted
the
her to
time?
leave the house.
I don't I don't cry all the time,
No.
but I am I do ride an emotional wave where
Wave.
it's
You're
like
emotional. Yeah.
yeah, and my son is Cancer too. Jace is July 11th, and I have been riding his emotional wave recently. And
Mhm.
I'm like, this is fucking exhausting.
Oh,
I don't
no.
know if he's like happy or sad. Like, I don't know how to read
Oh my
this, but
God.
like it's
It's a
Are you
lot.
seeing how it was?
first-hand experience. Like, I think this is the first time where I'm like, oh, this is what it's like.
This is what Allie was
Love a
talking about
Cancer.
when I talked about let's get on the Mandy roller coaster, and I'm like, okay, what are we dealing with today?
Yeah,
What is it?
sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
it's amazing, and then sometimes, like, it's deep. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
like, you start thinking about deep things. But
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
I
Just
wanted to
sometimes.
just, like, daily, but anyway. I wanted to ask you, Kyla, because you said you didn't know what breathwork was when you went. So,
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people out there that don't actually know what breath work is. So I have two questions here. The first
Mhm.
one is what do you have people that come to your breathwork sessions and they don't know? So like what do most people think breath work is when
Mhm.
they don't know what it is? And then can you explain what breath work actually is?
Yeah. Maybe I'll try. So if I clarify myself, I was teaching yoga at the time that I was invited to this session. And so I assumed breath work was what I was doing in yoga, like pranayama
Mm.
practices,
Mm.
which it is. So this is where it gets a little bit confusing, is that is breath work. Pranayama is breath work. All of the breath practices that, people talk about the most, box breathing, uh, the 4-7-8 breathing, there's really like quintessential practices that people might be familiar with. That is breath work. And the type of breath work that I didn't know what it was and am referring to is conscious connected breath work. Some people might know it as circular breathing or holotropic breathing or trauma release breathing or rebirthing. Like there's so many different names for it. Um, and conscious connected is the breath that I'm speaking of. I do have people who come in and I ask, have you practiced breath work before? And they'll say, well, yeah, I do yoga all the time. So I'm like, oh, I know how this is going to go. So a lot of people, yeah, I think there's people who still just assume that that's what it is. There's still people who don't, haven't been, uh, yeah, haven't seen outside of that box. And how would I describe what it is? It is a really intuitive practice to, how would I say it? To make contact with our subconscious, with the subtleties in our body, with the places that we've stored all of our stuff, our emotions that we didn't release, our fears, our stories, our traumas, our fantasies, our desires, our pleasures, our joys, like anything that you have ever felt like you needed to stifle or hide from or exile, it lives in our body. It lives in our tissues. It lives in our cells. It lives in our body. And to go even deeper, everything that our mothers and our grandmothers and our great grandmothers and our great great grandmothers and the blood and bones of our ancestors like lives in our body. And so a lot of what we carry as beliefs or behaviors aren't even ours, actually.
Mhm.
And so breath work invites us to exit the thinking conscious mind and drop into the intuitive subconscious, which is the body, which is where all of these pieces live. And so I speak about it as emotional release or trauma release breath. But that's generally what happens is emotions come out. And
Mhm.
I hesitate to say trauma release because that can sound really scary to some people. Our bodies are so intuitive and they're so wise that this comes back to the everything is happening for you at the exact right reason. Is it possible that something big and deep comes up? It is possible. And it will only come up if there's a part of you that's actually able and ready to be with it.
Yeah.
Your conscious mind might think, holy shit, I don't want anything to do with this.
Mm.
But there's a part of you that's like, yeah, girl, I got you. And now's the time. Yes, we can do this. We can look at this. We can tend to this. We can honor this part of us and we can process and heal it. So, and anything that actually was too much, we have so many inner protectors and inner like defense mechanisms that it would shut it down. It would shut it
Yeah.
down.
Mhm.
So I do say to people like it might be uncomfortable. It might be a bit emotionally uncomfortable, but it's not too much for you.
Yeah.
That's, that's everyone gets to interpret that themselves. Someone might be like, "No, I want nothing to do with this." But if we zoom out, it's like they actually are ready for it.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, so many people have stifled their joy and their play and their inner child and their pleasure and their silliness, and that gets to come out too. And so it's just this time where we get to give ourselves permission to tend to the parts of us that are asking for and are ready to be tended to. So it's
Yeah.
a very healing practice and it gets to be really fun and playful and really healing and like clarifying and powerful.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny because like you asking that question, Mandy, and I'm literally the person that has done both. So like my first time I was invited by a friend to one of Kyla. I didn't know you, Kyla. We weren't even connected through, before all of this when we were part of a business group together. And I remember my friend being like, "Oh, this person's hosting this like free breathwork session online. You guys want to join?" And I was like, "What's that about?" They're like, "It's you just breathe." Okay, so I literally experienced the going in being like, "I have no idea what this is. Sure, I can breathe." And, I remember I was camping and I, went into the tent trailer and I was like, "Nobody bother me. I'm going in to breathe." And I I, like, get on this thing and we start doing some of these breathing exercises, and then it starts getting more intense, and I'm like, "What the?" And that's when my body went, "Yeah, no." Because it started to get so that's what it wasn't just breathing, guys. Because if you're just breathing, you're not getting where all of a sudden you're feeling lightheaded and tingles in your body. And so when I went into it not having an idea of what it was,
Yeah.
my nervous system went, "Oh my gosh, are you gonna
Yeah.
have a panic attack?" Like
Yeah.
I freaked out. And I just remember kind of being like, I kept trying, but then I was like, "No, no," and I just kind of shut it down.
Yeah.
And so that was going into it, I guess, with not having any idea. And then, from that, because I've gone through my spiritual awakening, all of these things, like things have shifted. Breathwork was something that kept coming up. And I was like, stop it. Like, I don't want to do this. So when you say though that it comes, so obviously it was something that I needed. That's why it kept showing up. But when I finally got to a place where I'm like, I'm going to do a one-on-one breathwork session because I knew if I did a group one, I would cheat for
Yeah.
one. Because when it got uncomfortable, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'm breathing. and not
Yeah.
doing that. And it was exactly that, like that experience. I kind of went into it, was like, I'm just gonna like whatever sensations come up, like I know if they're wrong, the person's gonna tell me, like, okay, when you go to hospital. And like, I'm gonna trust that. That is this okay? Is this part okay? So like when my hands went rigor mortis and my feet
Yeah.
went rigor mortis, and I was like, she's still saying keep going, so I better keep going. But it was like, when you talk about it, like the subconscious part of it, the releasing the energy. So like
Yeah.
that was the thing that the practitioner, and it was a practitioner that you worked with, because we did a
Mhm.
medicine journey, and then one of the things that was noticed in that was my inability, like I had a hard time releasing emotion, so a lot of it
Mm,
got stored
mhm.
in, and so this was kind of the thing that she wanted to see. So I have a lot of energy and emotion trapped, and that came out physically, right,
Yeah.
where it was the tears, the shaking, the trembling, the rigor mortis hands, the I
Yeah.
don't know, was that dinosaur hands?
I call them T-Rex arms.
T-Rex arms, that I couldn't, I was, like, trying to, like, she's like, "Shake them out," and I was like, "They're not moving." Like, and this is all from breathing, like, I was, like, amazed. But when you talk about something coming forward, and what came forward was something I had no I it just came out of, like, it was not what I was expecting. Was
Mhm.
thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna go in and it's gonna be about my marriage, it's gonna be about my family," or something like that. And
Mhm.
it was a memory that came forward as a child, and just this, I think this, like, my sensual side that I really kind of put a cap on, or there was, like, this kind of shame to it, that I was very sexually curious
Yeah.
from a young age. And so that's where it's, like, crazy when you talk about that subconscious, like, why did that memory come up? There was nothing traumatic about it. Well, okay, first I want to clarify. So I think when we talk about trauma, there's different levels of trauma.
Yeah.
My understanding was always like, oh no, I haven't had anything traumatic in my childhood, because I'm thinking abuse, I'm thinking rape,
Yeah.
I'm thinking like traumatic.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how I kind of see trauma. But I start to realize that there's different traumas. It doesn't have to be this big grand thing. It can be a
Yeah.
small little thing, but
Yeah.
it's created a little trauma, I guess, in that sense. And
Yeah.
and you know, this little memory came up where I realized, oh my God. And I sat with it after, and I was like, that was the moment that I felt shame for wanting or curious about sensuality, for and
Yeah.
how that, and it was that just that really sparked, where all of a sudden I feel like I've had a liberation. I know I've had a liberation, in that part of me, where I am now embracing that side and loving it and not feeling shameful
Yeah.
about it. So, like, everything you just, like, said there, because I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, that's exactly what happened,"
Yeah.
in a session. It's
Oh,
crazy.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that yeah, little T trauma, big T trauma. Little T trauma is it's incestuous, it's sneaky, it's like, uh, okay, just based on what you just shared, and this I it's just the example that's coming to me, and I know that parents listening might be like, "Oh, man, I did that." But, hey, so
We
did all of our
all
parents. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Even, like, nicknaming the body parts, like your wee-wee and your like,
Mm.
just call it a penis. It's a penis.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
vagina. But
Yeah.
that starts the shame of, "Oh, I can't call it that, and I can't talk about it." And how many women can't talk about their pussy or their yoni or their whatever
Yes.
they
Or
wanna
their
call it? They can't
period.
or their
Everything.
period.
Everything. It's shame, shame,
Yeah.
shame. Yeah, it's
And then
embarrassing.
if you're a curious little kid and you're touching your parts, how many kids have been told, "Oh, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Oh my god, you can't do that, don't do that. Go over
Yeah.
there." Well,
What's wrong with her?
of
Yeah, or
course, there's
whatever.
gonna be shame. And that isn't a big T trauma. That's like a little just a little nick
Mhm.
that just
Mhm.
keeps sticking around.
Yeah.
And then, gosh, add adolescence and your first sexual experience and like
Mhm.
all the things. And then
It builds upon it,
porn, like there's so
all
much
of
shame
it.
and trauma around sexuality.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Oh,
just
I'm
crazy. Yeah.
so
So
happy
I
for
think
you.
it's yeah, well, yeah, it was then that, and that's when I say, like, it was profound, not just for the sense of like letting myself actually go there, because that was something I fought for a long time. And I didn't even know going into the session, actually. I remember thinking, if I need to fight it, I'm going to fight it and say, I'm sorry, I can't do this. And so, but, I was very happy that I actually allowed it to come through, because I do feel like you can go so far and then block it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where it's like pushing through that, you know, that boulder to be like, okay, I'm going in deep, and I'm like, we're just gonna see what happens. And obviously T-Rex arms happened, but nobody else was around to witness it, so I was like, okay, we're cool.
So did it really happen?
Right? It didn't. I'm still cool. I walked out like, it's fine, everything's fine. But it's like, it's just so crazy how like that's just a one little aspect that was trapped in there that I, of course, never thought about. Ever. It wasn't, and that's the thing, it wasn't some traumatic thing from my childhood. It was just a little memory. And so I just think that's where I was like, I saw breath work in a whole new light, whole new light on what it could, how powerful it is. And the breath work was, because you talked about the different types of breathing.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if this is the conscious one, because it was just like a loop, like it was a
Yeah.
constant loop. So that's the conscious one where you're just
Yeah.
non-stopping. Yeah.
I know who you're speaking of. We did we have the same training, we have the same t-shirt, we have the same,
Yeah.
Yes, it's exactly the same.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like, that's the conscious one that
Conscious
then,
connected. Yeah. And so the idea around that is like, I'm participating in this. Like I'm consciously choosing this. I'm here and I'm consciously choosing this. And the pattern is a circle, right? There's no pause at the bottom or top. It's just a circular inhale, exhale.
and it's such a simple thing. Like, I guess that's what I look at. I'm like, it is literally a simple thing, but it can bring you to heights of just crazy. Well, in the sense, I felt more high doing that than I did in the medicine journey. Like, again, I barely took anything, but still.
Well, I have people who have done like huge medicine doses and ayahuasca and will say that they feel and have deeper experiences through breath work than they have in medicine. And what I find so cool is that's just within you. Like we actually don't need, coming back to that, like outsourcing, we don't need anything else outside of ourselves.
We could just teach all the teenagers how to do breath work.
Oh
A,
my
they
gosh,
wouldn't have to go
no.
do drugs, and B, they wouldn't have to feel shit when they're our age.
Totally.
So we're just all going to get together and be like, let's get high on breath.
Like, let's do breathwork circles together, guys. The drugs. They can sit in the forest. They can still go to the forest and light a fire.
Put music on.
What if I could like infiltrate the high schools?
Yes. They wouldn't have to do drugs, and they wouldn't have to heal the trauma that their parents are currently putting them through. They're going to have to heal when they're our age, right? Like, let's nip it in the bud.
Yes,
I'm here for
that.
it. If anyone works for the school district that's listening,
yes,
call me.
Actually, Kyla, did you know that you can go onto the school district's webpage? I'm going to tell you this because I think you should do it. And register to be a facilitator for Pro D Days.
Oh,
yeah. Ooh. And they'll pay you a little bit, but you can go. So then you can teach the teachers about breath work, maybe give them a little bit of a session, and then maybe they could do breath work in their class. I don't know. Just a thought.
Oh,
yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So you're teaching on Pro D Days, because the teachers, it's a day for them to learn or whatever. Oh, so then you can be like a guest to come in to do that.
Yeah.
Teach the teachers.
Wow. Why breathwork would support you as a teacher or your classroom, whatever. You want to do it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. There's something here.
But I did want to say, because Allie was talking about her experience with breathwork and how she, it's a really healing experience. But I actually had a different experience when I did breathwork with you. And it was I went to one of your retreats, and we were in the dome up in Machosen. I had this, like, I still got to that space where I was like flying high, and I was connecting to my higher self and like angels. And I was like in this super high vibration, and I was just in such a blissful space that bliss stayed with me for days after. And I was like, this is wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't tell people what to expect.
No.
Yeah.
I can't. It's so different all the time. Some people consistently have like psychedelic visions.
Yeah.
And some people have full body stuff, and some people have like old stories come up, and some people have grief, and some people have orgasms. Like I cannot.
Orgasms.
Oh
Yes.
yeah,
It can be. What did you know about this? He's like, yeah,
blissful
I
for
did it.
days.
A blissful experience. Remember, I just said bliss. No, just kidding. I did not.
And you know what? I'll celebrate that if you did. If there's no shame in it. I'd be like, good on you, girl. Orgasm everywhere.
No, it's not that, but I've heard that.
Wow. I never have, but it just, because the energy is like circulating through your body. It's
if you're healing your sacral, so like say somebody's coming into breath work and for whatever reason their sexual trauma is coming forward or their sensuality wants to be shared so that they can start healing it, then of course why wouldn't they have all this energy building in their sacral space and perhaps have an orgasm?
Well, that actually makes okay. I did not have an orgasm, but it's now making more sense. So part of the symptoms that I got is remember I told you this, Mandy?
Yeah, I did.
Part of the symptoms was my lips got tingly and kind of like rigor mortis in a sense too. And I remember saying like the only other time I've ever had that is when I've been, sexually aroused or getting to like that doesn't happen every time, but there's certain times that I've
Tingly
had where I'm
lips?
like, oh my God, where my lips are just like trembling from the energy or
Like
the
your
passion.
face lips. Your face.
Oh my gosh, such a good one, Mandy. I'm doing it.
Sure. So cool.
My knee curtains just trembling. It wasn't my knee curtain. That was
there.
so good. I am so proud of you because I love that one.
That one's good.
Okay, it wasn't my meat curtains. It was my lips on my face.
Boring.
So
Anyways.
boring, so boring. But I remember afterwards going, or I even told the practitioner and I thought, oh gosh, she's going to think I'm crazy. I'm like,
No.
I kind of had like the tingling of the lips. And I've only ever had that when I've been close to arousal. And I'm like, but I wasn't. But I'm like, but it was happening. And I remember being like, what? Why am I having this thing when I'm in this like complete weird state? So that kind of makes sense. All the same energy.
It totally is.
Well, I wish it was an orgasm. That's okay. Next time.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, next time.
It's not really uncommon, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love that. And you know what? I love that you're doing like the women empowerment and stuff. Like, I know you're going to be hosting a retreat with a sex relationship coach, and I think it's all so interwoven. Like that's why I'm going.
Yeah.
Watch out, everybody! I will be orgasming on the spot, and then I'm going to bring Mandy along with me. She's going to be so uncomfortable. But it's like it's so true though. Like coming back into our bodies, right?
Totally. And it's like, if I like in full honesty, like it's medicine for me too. I need this so much.
Yeah.
And I really think that we work, well, yeah, we get to do the work that is the work that we needed and the work that we continue to need. So I just get so much, like really selfishly, I receive so much through doing this work.
I love that. But shouldn't we? Shouldn't we be doing what we're passionate about? And
it fuels you to do more and to like to show up and all that sort of stuff. It's, I don't know. We're just so programmed to believe that what we do for work isn't supposed to light us up or we're not supposed to receive from it.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
When really I was told this and I really liked it, so I'm going to take it. But we should be getting paid the most for the things that come the most easily to us.
Yeah.
Whereas often, if something comes really easy to us, we're like, oh, no. This is no problem. I can do that.
Oh, yeah.
We're being paid for that.
That's so true. That's so true. Because I know I've done that throughout my life and things that it's just, oh, yeah, no, that's no problem. I'll do that. No, you don't need to. It's just a side thing or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. It's just a different like rewiring of our brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Constant.
I love it.
Well, it has been a wonderful chat with you, Kyla, but we should probably wrap it up. I think it's been over an hour.
Too much fun.
I know, too much fun, but we'll have to have you
Fine.
on again. But do you want to share a little bit before we let you go, how our listeners can connect with you, how they can work with you, what you're, think we talked a little bit more about like where you're headed and stuff, so what they can
What's going
expect.
on?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I'm most active on the new Instagram account, which is Breathwork with Kyla. My website has everything pretty updated. That's just kylagagnon.com. And if you get to the website and you're confused, there's also like a contact me button. And that's always a safe way to get support. And with that, yeah, there's lots of ways we can work together. There's Breathe with Kyla if you like the community aspect, want a little bit of education and support. There's one-on-one. Like there's plenty of ways that we can work together. So it might be good to hit the contact me and just tell me a little bit about what's up and see where we might be able to do some good work together.
Mhm.
Amazing.
Mhm. I love
Amazing.
it.
Just a reminder for everybody out there that if you're interested in learning how to read energy and connect to your intuition and work in the Akashic records and start to really trust your intuition, we have our 6-month mentorship container open at the moment. So for registration, we start March 24th. So this episode will obviously be released before then. So if this is something that you feel called to do, you're not sure, you can always book a clarity call, check everything out on our website. All of Kyla's details will be listed in our show notes, as ours will be too. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.